Hello, and welcome to this video on proactive home health care for the prevention and treatment of common conditions. I'm Dr. Arlen Cage. In this video, I'm going to start by talking about why we need to be prepared to possibly be more self-sufficient than we might think originally concerning health and health care. We'll talk about our immune system and infectious illnesses, the basic home treatment for common conditions, a few words about emergency first aid, prevention. The best way to treat an illness is with prevention, and we're going to start with food, some additional prevention and lifestyle factors, and some resources to help you educate yourself. Very quickly, just a little bit about my background. I began as an engineer and manager in the aerospace industry, which gave me a good understanding of the scientific process, and then felt called to enter the career as a naturopathic physician, where I have specialized in another number of aspects of healthcare. I have a full biography on my website, drcagesays.org, and you can read about that as well as all the other services I provide through my private practice and wellness clinic in Hamilton, Montana, as well as providing a number of online resources. For some of you who may not understand exactly what a naturopathic physician is, how we work, similar to all the other doctoral level medical professions, such as medical doctors, chiropractors, and osteopaths, we attend 4 years of a specialized medical school where we learn all the basic medical sciences, diagnostics, and treatment with a heavy emphasis on holistic natural methods of treatment. We go through board exams, we have our own licensing boards, and the big difference between naturopathic medicine sometimes is that we try to work in harmony with the body's natural ability to heal, and we don't try to brute force things with a one-size-fits-all approach, giving everyone the same medication. One of my old-time professors, Dr. Robert Broadwell, once described naturopathic medicine as the system of medicine for when the power goes out. To set the stage for why we need to be thinking about providing health care for ourselves and our families at home, I felt drawn to start with this quote from J.R.R. Tolkien: "The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air." And when we look at the news, times certainly have changed, and they're changing quickly. Air, water, and soil pollution are everywhere. The climate is different. Thousands of new chemicals are released every year, and none of them have been tested for human safety. Food crops are different. You're not eating the same kind of food our parents had, and because of that pollution, our needs for nutrition are higher. And we are faced with epidemic levels of the chronic illnesses such as heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And many of those are actually preventable and reversible using natural methods. One of the sad truths of our modern times is that the recent years have demonstrated the unreliability of many authority organizations we used to count on and rely on to give us truthful, accurate information, especially about health. Government agencies, medical associations, drug companies, hospitals, doctors, and the media has long since stopped being journalists. And so how bad it actually is out here in the world is not fully known because of the unreliable media. But just consider, what if there was no hospital electrical power, no shipments of medicines or medical supplies, supplements, Band-Aids? What if those shutdowns went on for days, weeks, months, or even longer? Do you have all the reserves of everything you need for your health on hand? How long can you go before those run out if you're unable to resupply? And then what? How do you adapt? And unfortunately, a lot of the problems we face, whether in healthcare or anywhere else in our society, we're being faced with the reality that our ill health is the result of conspiring men who have a vested interest in us not being healthy. Genetically modified foods have been created that cause disease. Pharmaceutical industry and food industries are controlled by the same conglomerate companies. In other words, food companies have a vested interest in you not being healthy. The government has agencies supposed to protect us, and they don't, and on and on and on. This is what we're facing as we strive to be healthy in a world that seems to be conspiring to keep us unhealthy. So what I hope that becoming more aware of everything going on in the world around us regarding health will convey to you is that we all have a need to be more and more responsible for our own health care needs, for both ourselves and our families. And we can do that by preventing as many illnesses as possible through prudent living and wise choices in diet and lifestyle, to treat the common things when they arise at home simply and sustainably, and I'll be covering a lot of that in this video. The best form of prevention is nutrient-dense foods. We do cover some of that later on, but I also have a handout which if you email me from the contact page of this website, I will be happy to email you that handout to anyone who asks for it. Finally, I encourage everyone to learn one or more systems of healing suitable for common conditions. So things like herbal medicines or homeopathy come to mind, and there, of course, are others. As just a very, very quick overview, here are some of the kinds of conditions that you can either prevent or treat aspects of on your own that are treatable through natural methods. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, thyroids, fertility, neurological illnesses, many of them, infectious illnesses for all kinds of pathogenic organisms, stress, anxiety, and depression. So you may not be able to do all of these entirely on your own by yourself. You may need to see a natural healthcare provider who can assist with this. But just know that the propaganda which says you can't be cured of these, that you need to be on medications for life, you have to have irreversible surgeries, most of the time that information is not accurate, and you can in fact treat and cure these illnesses naturally. When you start taking responsibility for your own health, part of that includes the responsibility to know when you or a family member really needs help. Conventional medicine is outstanding and excels at a couple of major areas, one of which is diagnostics. When we can take three-dimensional moving motion pictures of your heart or other internal body organs without having to do surgery to see what's going on, that's pretty amazing. So the modern medical system excels at diagnostics, especially imaging. The other thing where I believe the modern medical system excels at and has probably not been exceeded in the ability throughout known human history is in urgent care. Fractures, bleeding, concussions, heart attacks, strokes, breathing and airway emergencies, and many other urgent conditions can best be handled successfully only in a hospital setting. So the key is, if any of these happen to you or someone else, get to a hospital, get patched up, and then get out of the hospital to avoid the unnecessary infections that are so rampant there, and use natural methods to help you heal faster. So next up, I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about your immune system. Yes, you really do have one. and how it can defeat different pathogenic organisms and how you can keep your immune system strong so that those microscopic bugs don't win the day. First of all, let's talk about the immune system. It's not one organ. It's a distributed set of functions spread out through many of our body's organs and glands. The chart here shows things like tonsils, adenoids, lymph nodes and lymphatic vessels, your thymus gland, the immune system lining the GI tract called Peyer's patches. These are some of the most crucial ones. Bone marrow makes our white blood cells, a big part of the immune system. So it also functions from layers. So there's an outer layer down through 4 major layers, which we're going to look at next. And every time a pathogenic organism tries to get past one layer, that outer layers send signals to the inner layers. So if they make it through, the inner layers are already active and fully armed when the pathogens get there. The outermost layer is our skin. It provides a physical barrier. It has a resident population of probiotics. These are healthy bacteria that help kill any bacteria and other organisms that we might encounter. The skin also secretes a type of immunoglobulins called IgA, and those can start flagging pathogens if they get past the skin. The second layer is our mucous membranes. You can think of this as internal skin under the microscope that has a significantly different structure than the skin on the outside of their body, and it's laden with cells that produce mucus. These are traps, kind of like flypaper for bacteria and viruses. It also secretes more immunoglobulin A, and it has much more of the defensive probiotics, the good bacteria, than this outer skin does, especially in our digestive tract. The third major layer is our lymphatic system. This can be likened to a sewage system. It's the waste processing system that collects cellular metabolic waste, debris, things of that nature, and it pumps it through the body in a separate set of vein-like structures called lymph ducts, and they pass through little pockets, which you can see on the screen here, called lymph nodes. And in the lymph nodes, some of our body's white blood cells take up residence full time. And everything that comes through the lymph node gets evaluated by the white cells there, and if it's pathogenic, they start to react, and they also send signals to the rest of the body's immune system. Now, the deepest layer is our white blood cells. This is sometimes called the blood-borne layer, and there are white blood cells circulating all the time whose can be divided into 2 main categories: those that identify and flag pathogens, and those that see those flags and kill and eat the pathogens. So these are the 4 basic layers. We could have a whole 1 or 2 hour long class explaining the whole immune system, and in fact I do have that video on my website, so do contact me with email if you're interested in gaining access to that video. There are a number of things we can do to help our immune system and keep it strong and functioning at an optimal level. And the first substance on that list is vitamin C. As an experiment, I did a search on the government database called PubMed, where all medical research is published and copies of it are there. And so my quick search was to search for vitamin C immune. And wouldn't you know, 40,000 results popped up. This test was rolling back at the beginning of 2022, so about a year and a half ago from the time I'm recording this, and it's probably more now. Vitamin C is the first thing everyone should think of when they're starting to deal with any kind of infectious illness. Next on the list is vitamin A. It strongly boosts the antiviral activity of our white cells. A couple of minerals, zinc activates the vitamin A and it boosts the performance of a type of white cell called monocytes. And selenium turns out to be very protective against viral infections. And vitamin D3 is a substance that activates our T cells, and you can think of it as the on switch for our T cells, a very specialized type of white blood cells, very involved in defending against viruses. Next up, I want to talk about herbal medicines that can boost our immune system. Now, these are things that improve the function of our non-specific and or specific immune system. They don't necessarily kill the pathogens themselves. I'll talk about those things in a little bit. The first is astragalus. It increases interferon, part of our non-specific immunity. It boosts T cells, B cells, and antibody production. There's an herb called cat's claw, which increases the overall white cell count, is also anti-inflammatory. Eleutherococcus, sometimes just called eleuthero, it's also known as Siberian ginseng, heavily increases the activity and number of white cells. And common herb echinacea is one that increases our white cell count and activity, very similar in role to eleutherococcus. However, it does not work with blood type O individuals. So if you are blood type O, if your family members are blood type O, you'll need to use some of these other immune boosters, and you won't want to use echinacea so much. So here is a matrix that's aimed at some of the most commonly found herbal medicines that you can find in the average well-stocked health food store, vitamin store, supplement store, and what they are effective against. Oregon grape is effective against bacteria, fungi, and molds and parasites. Echinacea, if you're not blood type O, if you're A, B, or AB, is great against bacteria, virus, and fungus, again by boosting the immune system. Hydrastis, or golden seal, is effective against bacteria, virus, and parasites. There's a Southwest America herb called chaparral, Laurea tridentata, bacteria, virus, and fungus. Black elderberry, or Sambucus nigra. This is very, very famous for helping protect against viral infections. This grows wild in many parts of the country, and it is absolutely effective, very effective. You'll find it in many over-the-counter preparations you can buy. An herb, the common name is Pau d'Arco, or the Tabebuia species family, and pretty much all the members of the Tabebuia species family work the same way. Highly effective at killing bacteria, virus, fungus, and parasites, all of the major pathogen types. And it's now gladly being cultivated here in the US. So this is one that's very good to keep around. Okay, this slide, I've collected a number of other antimicrobial substances that are commonly available. Not all of them are herbs, most of them are not, but colloidal, and next to each here I have written the types of pathogens it's effective against. So colloidal silver, olive leaf extract, garlic, common garden garlic that you can grow, best used raw, clove oil, oregano oil, a mineral substance called MMS, the chemical name is chlorine dioxide, mustard oil, grapefruit seed extract, coconut oil, manuka honey, and pretty much actually any raw unpasteurized honey will have similar properties, and grapeseed extract. These are all things that are commercially available, at least while the supply chains last. Some of them you can actually grow, like garlic, for instance. So the take-home message here is, in supply chain shortages. Antibiotics, antiviral medications really aren't going to be our biggest concern. We can grow them or wild harvest them in almost every part of the country, except of course if you happen to live in a big city, which means you might want to look at how you're going to manage this in those places. Um, Biggest concerns, my impression, are going to be insulin for type 1 insulin-dependent diabetics, epinephrine for those with severe allergies to things like bee stings, and anesthesia when we have to do surgeries, minor surgeries, sew someone up. It's a lot easier to sew on someone when you can anesthetize a cut, for example. So very briefly, summarizing what I've presented about the immune system. First, yes, you do have an immune system, and immune health is a good key to the overall health of our bodies. Immune systems are capable of defending against almost all invading pathogens and has been successfully defending us throughout our history. Your immune system requires certain key nutrients, vitamin C, A, D3, minerals zinc and selenium. Additional natural substances can boost immunity when needed at the onset of illnesses. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Other various natural substances can kill the invading pathogens, and it's going to be important to, at the onset of illness, to avoid refined carbohydrates and sugars and avoid dairy products. That's the first thing you should do. The second thing is take some vitamin C. All right, let's now move into looking at home treatment for basic conditions. I am a huge believer in the potency of herbal medicines, plant-based medicines. The naturopathic profession in general, and I in particular, is of the strong opinion that medicines made from plants in their whole natural form tend to be safer and more effective in the long run than isolated constituents. And what I mean by that are prescription drugs. You can serve or deliver herbal medicines a variety of ways, what we call teas euphemistically, but that can either be an infusion or a decoction. Powders, tinctures, there's advantages and disadvantages to each form. Herbal medicines are very widely available. You can grow at home many of these. And just as a point of fact, virtually every prescription pharmaceutical drug that we have today has been derived from plant molecules. And then the process is to isolate what they believe to be the most important molecule, modify its structure slightly by combining it with something else so it's no longer exactly what was found in nature, which makes it patentable and therefore profitable, especially if they can outlaw you using something else. Thousands upon thousands of plants can be used as herbal medicines, and they can treat almost every illness we deal with. So given all that, do we really believe drug companies that state herbal medicines are ineffective? Should we believe that? At the first onset of cold or flu-like symptoms, you'll need to start this protocol, which means you need to have all the things to use on hand. Stop sugar, stop dairy products, take large doses of vitamin C, vitamin A in the gel cap form. You don't want dry A, you don't want beta carotene. It's not as effective for acute illness. Vitamin D3, zinc, and selenium. A supply of different antiviral and immune boosting herbs, so like echinacea, golden seal, astragalus, for example. Many supermarkets carry what are called throat teas. It's in the herbal tea section, and they have different names, all with the name throat in them, and they're very, very good. Lemons, fresh lemon juice is best. For long-term storage, you'll want to get some supplies, perhaps, of lemon juice. Learn to cook and eat with as little white flour and refined sugar process as possible, as little of the unhealthy fats as possible. That goes a long ways towards prevention, which we'll talk about more to come. The best foods when you're fighting something off is soups, but with a clear broth, not a heavy cream-laden soup. And then rest. Go to bed and lay down. We're not supposed to keep going and going and going when we're sick. In terms of different types of home health care that you can learn, one is homeopathy, invented by a German doctor named Hahnemann in the late 1700s. He tended to find that diluting the medicines in a particular way, he had fewer and fewer side effects. He found guiding clues to the system he created in the writings of Paracelsus. Paracelsus's proper name was Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, and Paracelsus means better than Celsus or above Celsus. At the time Paracelsus was alive, Celsus was a famed physician from history, and he claimed himself better than Celsus. And it's from his middle name there that we get the modern word bombastic. Just a little historical tidbit for you. Homeopathy seems to work by stimulating the innate healing abilities of the patient. The mechanism of action involves quantum mechanics. It works even if the patient is unconscious and doesn't know they're receiving a medicine. So that's a short overview about homeopathy, and I will have some book recommendations later. Another thing to be done at home is called hydrotherapy, use of water for healing. It can stimulate the circulation of blood, oxygen, and energy. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our healing system. So there are a number of things that are fairly straightforward to do at home. If this field interests you, please contact me. So now I'm going to move into saying a few words about emergency first aid. Well, the first word I'm going to tell you is that every single person alive today needs to take a basic first aid course, whether it's from the Red Cross, through the Boy Scouts, through any other similar organization. Everyone needs to have a basic first aid class no later than age 12. And I'll say the same thing about CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Everyone needs to take that course. When somebody has a kitchen knife slip and cut their arm or a hand, that's the wrong time to be thinking, I need to take a first aid course. In most cuts and wounds situations, in order of priority is number 1, stop bleeding. Number 2, cover the wound to prevent infection. Next is to promote healing. And 3, treat infections if they arise. I will say this, if there is spurting blood, not just a slow, steady flow, it means that an artery has been cut, and that is an urgent care situation. So off to the urgent care, off to the ER you go. There's a variety of wound healing herbs, especially those based in the herb calendula. The wound healing herbs have a property you'll find in herbal literature called a vulnerary. It promotes healing and growth of tissues. So aloe, we'll see later in the burn section, and raw honey all can help heal wounds. When there is healing, depending on the type of wound, the direct pressure kind of techniques you'll learn in a first aid class may not always be enough. So a couple of things I like is topical cayenne pepper. You can use it by the handful. You can snort it or squirt it with a nasal cavity with a bulb syringe. And it will stop nosebleeds. And no, it does not burn unless you get it in your eyes or in some other mucous membrane. You can consume cayenne pepper in capsules for internal bleeding. It doesn't necessarily fix the root cause, but it will stop bleeding in the urgent time frame. There is a homeopathic medicine made from phosphorus. 6C potency is the best for first aid. A couple of things for burns. I've used these personally. Friends and family members have used them personally. There's just a lot of effective use for the relief of pain for burns. The inside of fresh banana peels, a good reason to keep bananas on hand as long as we have them. The juice and pulp of fresh aloe leaves, so keeping an aloe plant or two around the house is always a good idea. For simple basic sprains, where there's no fractures, there's no indication of torn ligaments or torn tendons, there's the RICE formula: rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Using the hydrotherapy for the ice is use ice only for the first 1 to 2 days. After that, alternating hot and cold, starting hot, finish cold, and you can do that several times. You can have a bucket of hot water, keep it hot, have a bucket of ice water, and go back and forth. About 15 minutes on hot, about 5 minutes on cold, and just keep going back and forth. And you're pumping blood in and nutrients in. You're pumping cellular debris out. It's one of the ways elite trained athletes recover from injuries so quickly. Homeopathic arnica, the arnica pellets sublingually and arnica gel topically on sprains really speeds healing. Fractures. These are not uncommon. They do happen with some regularity. And they will require medical assistance to ensure proper setting and healing of the bones. A simple fracture it's just a break. You can often tell that by looking at bruising in the area. A compound fracture now has a bone or bone fragment protruding through the skin, so that means you also have a wound. These are much more complex. So get to the hospital when the bone is set. Then we can use a variety of home remedies to speed healing. High doses of bone-building supplements, like the osteoporosis blends. I have ingredients listed here. A homeopathic called Symphytum, made from the comfrey plant. If the bone doesn't heal after a period of time, in the old days, before casting became common, and they were just trying to wrap things up with splints, they would use a poultice of the comfrey root wrapped around the fracture site, wrap that with something to hold the poultice in place, and then splint the bone. So that way the poultice could be changed. Comfrey is a very good plant. Everybody should have it in their gardens. It has uses in the GI tract and respiratory conditions. So comfrey is good, but this is a basic overview. If it's broken, you need to get professional medical help. Okay, now let's move into the concept of preventing illness through using food medicinally. Hippocrates was a Greek physician and philosopher. He is considered in modern times to be the father of modern medicine. He lived from 460 BC to 370 BC, so that was 90 years. Two of his quotes from his writings I really like. Let your food be your medicine, and your medicine be your food. And the one that the pharmaceutical industry seems not to like so much is, leave your drugs in the chemist's pot if you can cure your patient with food. So with that word of warning from Hippocrates, let's take a look at the three main categories of food: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Both can be found in high quality and low quality forms. So the left column, meat from animals fed a natural grass diet without added hormones, without antibiotics, and without being finished on grain. Wild caught fish, especially deep cold water fish like salmon or cod. Small fish like smelt or sardines. Organic plant sources of proteins. Um, Meat over in the low quality column was fed on poor quality diets. A lot of grain, a lot of corn. They try to fatten the animal up so that the meat looks like it does on the right. It looks marbled and has all this fat, but you don't want to be eating those fats. If they're pro-inflammatory, they have a lot of chemicals, and the same is true for farm-raised fish. You don't want to be eating those. So this is the difference between high quality and low quality proteins. Carbohydrates. The two things to know about carbohydrates are complex carbs and simple carbs. Complex carbs are found naturally as long chains of carbohydrates and sugars that the body has to break down, and that takes time, and that helps normalize blood sugar levels. So vegetables of all kinds, eating the whole vegetable, eating the whole fruit, whole grains, and fiber. I'll say more about whole grains in a moment. Simple carbohydrates, these are naturally found by in short chains of carbohydrates, short 1 or 2 sugar molecule chains. What that results in is white flour, refined sugars, corn syrups, and any foods made with those, like pastas, cereals, and breads. So this slide here shows the difference between whole grain and anything made from it, and white flour and anything made from it. What I've shown here is a cross section of a generic grain seed. So the seed has a shell around it that we call the bran. It consists of fiber, which is mostly non-digestible by us, but it is food for the good bacteria, the probiotics that live in our digestive tract. At one end of the grain, there is something we call the germ. This contains the DNA for the plant, the vitamins, minerals, proteins, healthy oils, and the enzymes. Everything the plant needs to grow, for that seed to grow into a new plant, with the exception of fuel. The fuel is in the form of starch, which is the storage form of sugar in plants. Now, when we take that whole grain and convert it into white flour, we grind it up, run it through basically big industrial sieves, and separate out the bran, and we separate out the germ, and so all that's left in white flour, that's right, is sugar. Eating sugar is chemically the same as eating white flour. White flour, white sugar, the body doesn't see a difference. And finally, let's talk briefly about fats. High quality versus low quality fats. The essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6 oils, good sources are flax oil, evening primrose oil, borage oil, and fish oils. They should not, however, be used for cooking, only taken as a supplement or mixed with foods after they've been cooked. To do cooking with fats, you need a short or medium chain saturated fat, such as coconut oil, palm kernel oil, and grapeseed oil are my favorites. Fats that are high in the trans configuration of its molecules are bad for the body. Long chain saturated fats are bad for the body. Artificially man-made fats, such as margarine and shortening, are also bad for the body. All right, let's move in and talk about a few things about preventive lifestyles. The first thing I want to say is if you're looking at this and you have not necessarily been living a preventive lifestyle up to this point, and you're looking at foods and herbs and some of these things and feeling a little overwhelmed, that's okay. Don't worry about that just yet. Just start to make a plan for eating healthier. That's where we'll start. It can take up to 90 days to create new habits, so give yourself some time, be patient with yourself and your family. The best place to start is with food, then with exercise. Just walking is a simple exercise, and doing some form of push-ups, even if all you can do at the beginning is hold the push-up position even on your knees. And then give yourself the goal over the next year to learn at least one system of home health care. It could be herbalism or homeopathy or whatever you choose. So that's how we're going to start. So fear not, you will succeed. One of the concepts of nutrients is nutrient-dense food. In the olden days, all food was nutrient-dense because we hadn't destroyed our farming soils and we hadn't covered them with dangerous chemicals. So to grow your nutrients, any of the red and orange vegetables like the carrots and squash shown here are going to be very, very high in vitamin A and its precursors. So that's where the carotenes families come from. Carotenes, like beta carotene, can be converted by the body into vitamin A. Bioflavonoids are very powerful antioxidant molecules. They're anti-aging. They do help the body deal with the effects of pollution. The purples and blues, so dark blue, purple grapes. Middle picture, elderberries. When you go out harvesting elderberries in the fall, that's what you're looking for, that right there. Blueberries. A lot of other berries and fruits have bioflavonoids, but the dark blue color is the best place to start. If you're growing plants in mineral-rich soil, and the way you know it's mineral-rich soil these days is because you're adding minerals to it. So things like compost and fireplace ash, wood fireplace ash. There are a variety of ways to get bags of ground rock dust and put it back into the soil. And organic farmers tend to do this. So if you're shopping at the organic farmers market, you're going to find that those foods fill you up, and that's because they were grown in mineral-rich soils. And the broad leafy greens, which is where this slide is heading, have the ability to concentrate minerals very, very well. So things like spinach, kale, chard, collard greens, and so forth are all very high in minerals. The cruciferous family contain a variety of substances that are cancer preventative. So broccoli, kale, cabbage, collard greens, cauliflower, turnips, radishes, and so on. Also, a number of the mushrooms, shiitake and reishi mushrooms, apricot pits and seed pitch seeds, also very protective. So the cruciferous family are very, very healthy and preventative. Next up are a couple of ways to grow your own vitamin C. There's a plant called sea berry. It was originally a native from Asia. It's been imported to the US. It can grow everywhere from Arizona to Canada, and so all latitudes. Ounce for ounce, it is reported to have a higher vitamin C concentration than orange juice. It is, however, quite bitter. You'll need to mix it with something else to give it flavor. Please don't mix it with sugar. That just defeats the immune boosting properties of taking vitamin C. So mix it with another natural fruit juice and you'll be fine. Next up is rose hips. This is a type of wild rose bush. It grows in long, thin, climbing vines. This is not the kind of rose that produces the long stem red roses we all send our wives and girlfriends on Valentine's Day, or husbands, on Valentine's Day. They put out a tiny blossom. It smells like rose, and then it puts out a red fruit, and you can see a close-up on the upper picture. You see kind of what it looks like growing all over the tree. The tree isn't the rose. The rose is the vine climbing on the tree. You can find them growing in many mountainous regions along river valleys, little streams and things like that. It can be used in infusions. It can be dried. They can be ground. You can put them in various foods. To grow at your home, because it's a climbing plant, it will grow on trellises very, very well, and you can be growing your vitamin C right there in your yard. All right, that covers most of what I had wanted to say about prevention and basic home health care for simple things. Um, Anything more involved, I'm happy to teach classes on. So if you and a group of friends say, hey, I want to know more about herbal medicines, send me an email and we'll put something together for you. Next up, I'm going to go through some of the resources which I have found highly useful over the years. All right, here are some books. I personally own and use every book I'm showing you here. It's a very tiny part of my library, but I find these useful. Prescription for Natural Healing by Balch, focuses on nutritional supplements. Healing with Whole Foods by Paul Pitchford includes a couple of different approaches to nutritional theory as well as many holistic healthy recipes. The next two are books on herbal medicine. They're very similar, very good. They have a lot of pictures. They talk about how to identify the plant, which part of the plant to use. And the one on the right, the Chevalier book, covers more herbs than the Hoffman book here on the left. But Hoffman has a good section on how to make herbal medicines. I find that very useful. If you ever thought you wanted to learn homeopathy, maybe you tried and you went to the homeopathy section of the bookstore and were simply overwhelmed at the dozens, if not hundreds of books there, and you didn't know where to begin, and so you didn't even start. Believe me, I understand. I went through all that about 30 years ago when I was first learning this. These two books I have found to be useful. Homeopathy, the Principles and Practice of Treatment, as well as Homeopathy, an Illustrated Guide. The more basic one is Homeopathy, an Illustrated Guide. Both of these will serve you well, and then when you get into it, then you'll start learning about the other categories of literature and how to use them. I like this next book, The Self-Care Guide to Holistic Medicine. It's kind of like a little mini primer. It goes into much more detail than we have time for in this short video. And then last, but hopefully not least, is my book, Heal Your Life, Heal the World, which includes a big discussion of why we should strive to be healthy, the three major causes of modern ill health and how to overcome them, and to restore and maintain your optimal health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I also have sections talking about health of communities and whole populations, not just individuals. And links to buy my book are on my website. So I hope these help you out. If you have any questions, please contact me. All my contact information is listed at the bottom of this screen. Phone number 406-361-8073. Email drcagesays@gmail.com, and my website, which if you found this video you know, but it's www.drcagesays.org. Reminder, I have a first Thursday Health and Wellness Lecture Series free of charge at my office building. Call if you have questions. And I'd like to remind or let everybody know that I do publish a podcast called Total Health with Dr. Cage. It is hosted on a platform called Podbean and is also available on many other podcasting platforms. Links for all that are on my website.